Good evening. Welcome to the September 21st, 2023 meeting of the Mount Juliet Municipal and Regional Planning Commission meeting. I'd like to welcome everyone here tonight. Nice to always see a full crowd. I was absent for last month's meeting, so my apologies for my absence from the meeting.
It went very well.
That was my understanding as well, and it went very well for me. I have a happy wife, and took her on a vacation for her birthday. So after 27 years together, that is the first time that I guess my selfish self has taken her on a vacation for her birthday. So she did enjoy that, and my apologies for my absence during that. With that being said, I want to start off tonight because we do have a few members' absence tonight to make sure that this is clear in regards to a quorum. The presence of 5 members of the commission shall constitute a quorum for the transaction of business. The chairperson may, at his or her discretion, wait up to 30 minutes after the scheduled meeting time for a quorum to be present. In the event that a member is required to leave a meeting prior to adjournment and the departure causes a loss of quorum, no further official action may be taken until a quorum is restored other than an adjournment. A majority vote of those commissioners present, and in no case less than 4 affirmative votes, shall be required to decide any item of business requiring action from the commission. So I wanted to be clear about those 4 affirmative votes, particularly affects us when we do have a few members absent. With that being said, our next item on the agenda is to set our agenda. I am only aware of one minor change at this point in time, and that's just a clarification and some wording, just in case anybody happened to jump on really early Monday morning, as it was fixed very early, but it is in regards to item 5.1. Let me grab my old agenda so I can tell everybody what it once said. Item 5.1 was originally presented as a preliminary master development plan PUD amendment. It should be noted as a preliminary master development plan unit development. So just a clarification right there on the agenda. And staff has corrected that for anyone that obtained a agenda online, and all of the members of the Planning Commission should have received an updated agenda accordingly as well. With that being said, are there any other changes, amendments, adjustments to the agenda? We'll set the agenda as stated. Next up are our staff reports, and we'll begin with our planning director, Ms. Hamlin.
Thank you. In every seat of the House tonight, you have a flyer with our special census QR code on it. The special census will be kicking off very shortly. You'll see a lot of social media posts, those types of things. We might have a few contests for people that submit their information early. So the QR code works tonight, and anybody that lives in the city, we would appreciate if you would go ahead and fill out that information. The city of Mount Juliet receives about $170 per person in state shared sales or state shared tax. So it's very beneficial to us as far as our police, fire, parks, infrastructure improvements, and those types of things. Also want to talk to you about our annual training, September 26th, which is coming up next Tuesday. I ask that you be at the park by 2:30 to get on the van to go over to West Wilson Utilities water treatment plant. And I want to thank them for allowing us to do so, and also the Mount Juliet Senior Citizen Center for letting us use their van. So that concludes my report. Thank you.
Wonderful. Shane, anything from Public Works?
Yes, sir. I want to start off by bringing some recognition to the new right turn lane off Lebanon Road going on to Golden Bear Gateway heading south. This is really project's been going on probably in the works for at least a couple of years. It's live. It really has helped out traffic. I noticed going to the high school one work day during prime time or PM traffic, there was no backup on Lebanon Road, and that was just astonishing to see. So I want to attribute Director White, Abraham, and contractors that we had to get that road open and constructed basically within a month. So to help out our citizens and traffic concerns that are ever present. Also wanted to note that the sidewalk project on Lebanon Road going east between North Mount Juliet Road and Park Glen will be starting up next month. So we'll have sidewalks on both sides of the road there just to increase pedestrian activity. And as a runner myself, it's more mileage that I can find within the city. Last project I want to talk about, and Chairman Winchester has asked me the last couple of times he's been here about it, about the roundabout at North-South Green Hill Road. They swapped over to phase 3 of the temporary traffic control plan last night. Director White told me they look to have that in place for a couple of months before they swap over to phase 4. And we're still targeting a late spring completion. And with that, concludes my staff report.
Wonderful. Thank you, guys. I actually, on my way here, drove directly through the new change over there. And I know I received a nixle about that earlier today as well. And I think so we got that published out there. But yeah, for anybody that's going through there, it's a definite change to be noted. So yeah. The grass is mowed. Well, actually, the grass is not mowed. There was a skid steer up on top of it that kind of graded it out, smoothed it out. It looks very kind and pretty. I actually spoke to Mrs. Hamlin about that this morning, as a matter of fact. So even in my big truck, I came through the other day, I was like, where are we going? But no, it looks great. It looks smooth. Everything's marked. There's a section, if you're heading southbound on it, there's a section that kind of almost looks like a lane. There's adequate signage right there denoting no traffic one way and whatnot. It's pretty smooth movement. I'll say when you're heading southbound, you have that roundabout on your passenger side of your vehicle. So folks like me in a larger vehicle, larger truck, you do got to pay attention to that. So I would encourage people to kind of slow your movement as much as you can until you get used to the movement of that. Because if there's somebody coming through traffic and you're passing them and you're in that roundabout there, it's a little tight. And so you're kind of being wary of that huge concrete curb over there to your passenger side of your vehicle, but pretty smooth. I mean, I've passed right through it as you come out of Willoughby Station now. If you're making a southbound movement or to your right out of Willoughby, I think it's just a yield right now, honestly. And so you just yield and head right south. So it's going to let that school traffic in the morning hopefully take off that way towards Mount Juliet Elementary. The northbound movement is certainly very different coming out of Willoughby Station, so folks will want to pay attention to that, and then our morning traffic as well. So if you're southbound on Green Hill, and the people that desire to go northbound on Green Hill coming out of Willoughby will have to get used to that movement, I would say will be the biggest challenge or the biggest thing to get used to, in my opinion. So, but very nice, cleaned it up as well, so a lot of work in a short time. Yes, sir. Looks good. All right. That being said, at this time, we'll take citizen comments. The public is welcome and encouraged to make public comment about any item on our agenda. There will be 2 opportunities for you to make those comments. You may speak now, or you may speak when the item is presented to the Planning Commission. We do ask that you limit your comments to 3 minutes or less, and anyone that wishes to speak at this time is welcome and encouraged to do so. Please come to the microphone, state your name and address for the record. Yes, so you either speak, if you want to speak about any item on the agenda, I'll just say, review the final plat for the Cane Break subdivision. So if you got concerns about that one, you would either speak at this opportunity, or you speak when it actually comes up on the agenda. So, but not both. That is correct. Just one time, if you have concerns about a project. So name and address for the record, please.
Doug Giacomelli, 5010 Winslow Drive. Also Kelsey Glenn, president of the HOA, speaking now just in case I have to leave before we get to the next
Yes,
point.
sir.
But here, obviously, to discuss with a number of our residents that are here in the room as well, the annexation plan for Whispering Meadows. It's located over at the end of Ritter Drive, which is part of our current subdivision. Just wanted to kind of bring up, I know that this is a preliminary discussion about this. Wanted to bring up just in general what a lot of our residents have brought up to us as some of the primary concerns amongst other things. Obviously, the biggest concern for the preliminary plans that we have seen is typically that it's really just a single entrance in and out of this proposed development, and that it's going to run all the traffic, both construction and post-construction traffic, as we last saw it through our neighborhood, which is a concern because as it sits right now, John Wright Road already has an excessive traffic. We were here when we were discussing the Western Connector a while ago, and there was concern for the traffic that's already going to be driven by that. Pushing that extra traffic down there into our communities, also a concern because Oxford Drive, which has become affectionately known as Kelsey Glen Speedway, we've also been working with the city as to opportunities we have to try to control some of the speed, some of the traffic there. And to be completely honest with you, with the number of students, kids, families we have in the neighborhood, there's one bus stop right there, which is just before you hit Ritter and Oxford, where an entire busload is unloaded every day and picked up every day, and kids are running around there. Just very concerned about the amount of additional traffic this is going to be taken into consideration without having, if it's not being proposed, to have some kind of other entry source like on John Wright Road or another otherwise stated. That's one of the primary concerns we have, as I said, both with the construction traffic and the post-construction traffic. Obviously, the other concerns that I'm sure some of my residents will also be able to express when we get to the point either now or afterwards, that we have had some considerable concerns with the flood zones that are kind of in and around the area. And we know that a lot of the area that's being proposed is also in some of that waterway. So we're hoping that's all going to be taken into consideration as that's proposed and listened to.
Thank you. Any additional citizen comments at this time? Seeing none, we'll move on with our agenda. Our first item up tonight falls underneath our minutes approval. It's item 2.1. It's the Planning Commission regular meeting minutes from August 17th of 2023. Any changes, amendments, typos, adjustments? Seeing none, I'd like to ask for a motion in regards to this item on our agenda.
Motion approved.
And a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye and raising your hand. Aye. Against? Abstentions? So approved. Next item up on our agenda falls underneath our consent agenda. We'll begin with item 3.1. The sewer letter of credit number 1552 for Providence Central PUD, Central Pike Sewer, in the amount of $170,898 can be released. Item 3.2, sewer letter of credit number 55110362 for the Providence Parkway Extension in the amount of $12,120 can be released. Item 3.3, sewer letter of credit number 954-255-3054-90107 for Harrington Phase 2 in the amount of $55,245 can be released. Item 3.4, sewer letter of credit number 954-255-3054-90145 for Harrington Phase 3 in the amount of $54,786 can be released. Item 3.5, sewer letter of credit number S509326 for Northtown Gardens in the amount of $79,650 can be released. Item 3.6, review the site plan for Houston's Meat and Produce located at 3910 North Mount Juliet Road. Item 3.7, review the final plat for the Canebrake subdivision, Phase 1A, located at 0 West Division Street. Item 3.8, review the final plat for the Golden Bear Place subdivision, located at Golden Bear Gateway and Volunteer Boulevard. Item 3.9, which is a recommendation item back to the Board of Commissioners, is review the rezone request from Office Professional Services to Commercial Interstate for the Golden Bear Place subdivision located at Golden Bear Gateway and Volunteer Boulevard. Item 3.10, also a recommendation item to the Board of Commissioners, would be to review the subdivision regulations amendment to section 4-101-11, redefining minimum lot sizes from 1 acre to 40,000 square feet. Item 3.11, which is a recommendation item back to the Board of Commissioners, is review the minor amendments and clarifications requested by FEMA and TEMA to floodplain ordinance number 2023-17. Ms. Hamlin.
Staff recommends approval or positive recommendation with any of our conditions listed in our staff reports.
Very well.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Shane, anything from Public Works?
Staff also recommends approval or recommendation of our, of the items on the agenda for our comments. I also want to look at item 3.8 and restate our comment of approval for Golden Bear Place subdivision. Before you, I made a correction on our condition, and I further wordsmithed it after speaking with Mr. Thorne. And I'm going to read this into the record and provide my written statement to Mr. Gutierrez after the meeting.
Very well.
Add following note to plat. Developer is responsible for the bridge culvert and other infrastructure improvements on Rutland Drive that Project Prosper is installing, and thus agrees to reimburse the city of Mount Juliet $750,000, said amount to be paid upon issuance of the certificate of occupancy for the first building constructed. And that concludes our consent agenda approvals.
Very well. Are the West Wilson Utility District comments
There's been no
verbatim
ch-
to the
those-
previous comments?
Correct. Yes,
Very
sir.
well. Please, Commissioner.
A question on the bridge and the culvert. Is that not the responsibility? Is that not getting built by Costco?
It is.
So are we gonna make the comment that the developer put in the culvert and the bridge, even though Costco is putting in the culvert and the bridge, or the,
I see what you're saying. The developer that wishes to build on this plat is only responsible for the financial contribution.
correct?
And I can reword that for Mr. Gutierrez for the record. But they are not responsible for any of the actual construction that is going to take place.
Correct.
Project Prosper will be doing all the work for that.
Correct. So you want to read that back in, or do you want to?
I can, or either
Doesn't matter.
way, it doesn't matter. I can get it written
Okay.
for
Okay.
Mr. Gutierrez and for the public
Okay.
record.
Yeah, that's fine.
Very well. That's a good point of clarification. Any additional questions or comments from the commission?
That answer my question.
Very well. Very well done. That being said, I'd like to ask for citizen comments regards to any item on the consent agenda. Anyone wishing to make comment, please come to the microphone and name and address for the record. See no citizen comments at this time. I'd like to close our planning commission meeting in order to open a public hearing. The public hearing is in regards to items 3.7 and 3.8. Item 3.7 is review the final plat for the Canebrake subdivision, Phase 1A, located at 0 West Division Street. Item 3.8 is to review the final plat for the Golden Bear Place subdivision, located at Golden Bear Gateway and Volunteer Boulevard. Anyone wishing to speak during the public hearing on either of those two items is welcome and encouraged to do so. Please come to the microphone and state your name and address for the record. Seeing no citizen comments at this time, we'll close the public hearing, reopen the planning commission meeting. And at such time, I'm looking for a motion in regards to the items on our consent agenda.
Motion to approve.
It's a motion to approve and
With
positive.
conditions as read and as stated.
Very well. Second, Stan. It's a motion and a second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye and raising your hand. Aye. Against, abstentions? So approved. And so positively recommended. Next item up on our agenda, turn some of these off, does fall underneath annexation and plan of services. This is a recommendation item back to the Board of Commissioners. This is to review the annexation and plan of services for Whispering Meadows located at 0 Ritter Drive. This is the annexation and plan of services only. For those that might not have a copy of the agenda, the next item up on our agenda would be the preliminary master development plan, and at which time we will address that. At this time, we're addressing only annexation and plan of services. Ms. Hamel.
Staff recommends approval for the annexation and plan of services, or positive recommendation, I should say.
Very well. Thank you.
I would like to add a condition though,
Please.
pending approval of the PMDP.
Very well. Anything from Public Works, Shane?
We have no comments.
Very well. Questions or comments from the commission at this time? Seeing none, I'd like to call for citizen comments in regards to this item on our agenda. Any citizens wishing to make comment in regards to this item, please come to the microphone, state your name and address for the record. Seeing no citizen comments at this time, I'd like to ask for a motion in regards to this item on our agenda. I'll make a motion for a positive recommendation, subject to staff comments and subject as well to the approval of the PMDP. Motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye and raising your hand. Aye. Against? Abstentions? It is a positive recommendation, subject to the approval of the preliminary master development plan. Next item up on our agenda is item 5.1. It is also a recommendation item back to the Board of Commissioners. Item 5.1 reads as review the preliminary master development plan, planned unit development with the rezone from Wilson County R1 to RS30 PUD for Whispering Meadows located at 0 Ritter Drive. I just want to make when we have several people, if you don't come to planning commission very often, when I say it's a recommendation item back to the Board of Commissioners, basically what that means is we are looking and reviewing a plan, but ultimately it has to go in front of our Board of Commissioners for its final approval or disapproval, and that is a 2-reading process. Any recommendation items on this agenda would be first read at the Board of Commissioners at which meeting? You know, just in case anyone is interested.
Third, first
October,
reading, October 23rd.
October 23rd. So anyone wishing to follow any items that are recommendation items on the agenda tonight, October 23rd would be the first reading before the Board of Commissioners, just as an FYI for anyone interested. With that being said, Ms. Hamlin.
Thank you. As you stated, this proposal is for a 23-lot residential subdivision and associated improvements via extension of Ritter Drive out of Kelsey Glen. The base zoning requested for this project is an RS30. Requested density is 1.34 units per acre. The plans include construction of a section of the western connector along the east portion of the PUD. The road stubs for future development are provided via the western connector portion. Per the city's public works team, and Shane will go over this more extensively with you guys, Ritter Drive is classified as an access lane. The maximum number of homes to be served by an access lane is 25 lots. The applicant has requested a waiver for this regulation. Improved open space consists of 1.71 acres of the development site, which is 10% of the PUD area. The applicant has requested a few variances, one being each facade of the home can have 50% of fiber cement siding. And our rebuttal to that is staff would support 11 homes to be 100% brick or stone, allowing for 12 homes to be faced with 50% secondary or hardy as requested. Typical in a PUD, your setbacks, lot width, and max coverage. That's number 4 on the waivers and variances requested. They're asking for 40%. We would support 35%. And lastly, number 5, variance to exceed the number of homes permitted on an access lane, which is 25, and our Public Works Department does not support that variance. The site also includes a cemetery, and the applicant has provided detail of the fence proposed for this area, which is acceptable. However, we have asked for parking for that cemetery, and previous plans show that those parking spaces were shown inside the right-of-way, and we asked that those be located outside of the right-of-way and provided. Planning staff recommends forwarding this rezone and PMDB to the Board of Commissioners with a positive recommendation pending the approval of the variances, as well as any conditions listed in our staff report. Thank you.
Two notable recommendations that we have is, as Director Hamlin mentioned, subdivision itself exceeds the number of maximum residential dwellings that are allowed on an access street, which is 25. In combination with this development and the existing homes on Ritter Drive. And the variance will be heard by this board if the number of lots are not decreased, and staff does not support this variance without the stub of the western connector being built, which is shown on the plans. And the reason this western connector is shown, public funding and public support of this project I know is dormant at the moment, but per the land development code, sort of similar to how greenways are, this western connector is part of the transportation plan, and a study was performed by Director White and our former Director Barlow on establishing the route for the western connector. And since this property is part of that route, as part of the code, they are responsible for that portion of the roadway. So the developer has agreed to show that stub for this development. And with that, be more than happy to answer any of the questions you may have.
Very well. Thank you. Me, go ahead and open up questions, comments from the commission at this time. After. Yes, sir. You have some? Commissioner Rest, please.
I'm going to have some further comments, but full disclosure to the developer and the owner. I am the last resident on Ritter, and I wouldn't say I have a personal stake in this, and any of those comments I will keep to myself, but anything related to planning commission comments, I will make those comments on the planning commission.
Thank you. Do you have some?
I just ask questions. But no comments.
Very well.
Questions.
I'll start off with a couple real quick. I just want to make just a couple notes on some of the things that I see. I know these are just proposed driveways, and this is, it'll get to final plat, but just want to make sure it's included into the notes. I'd like to see the driveway access for lot 23 move back to the south side and not have the potential at the cross intersection of Road A and Ritter Drive. Likewise, the driveway access moves south as well on lot 2, which is also denoted as a critical lot because of its corner lot right there. But also to get that driveway out of the turning radius for Road A as well, making a southbound movement on that. And then one final note here, had a little bit of experience on some of these smaller additions to neighborhoods, the perception and the feel. I guess probably one of my disappointments is it's not part of Kelsey Glen, so it doesn't, not the same product, but it's going to give all the appearance and everything to be a portion of Kelsey Glen. Would have rather have seen something like this come before us when we approved the master plan, our final master development plan for Kelsey Glen. As it went forward, we've had several additions to that project, I believe, over the years since it's first started. And it was chosen not to go into this area for some reason. So I don't know that it's very well master planned towards that. But it's going to have the perception towards that, probably a very similar price point as well. So there's expectations from our homeowners when they drive through a neighborhood to look at another neighborhood and thinking that they're part of a neighborhood that they're not of. With that being said, I'd like to see something other than a what do I have? I've got a mail kiosk right there at the entrance on Ritter Drive. I've got a playground and a bench. I mean, we can do a little bit better than that, in my opinion. Whether or not that's some kind of an outdoor pavilion, grilling station. Not everybody has kids, and so you're moving into a amenity for kids. Myself, I don't have any young ones, so if I were a homeowner here, I have no amenities. Amenities should be designed appropriately for a community and not towards one gender, age, anything. They should be universal, in my opinion, and able to be used by everybody there. And this one is not of sort. Love the tot lots, love them. Not to say anything about that, but if we're defining that as an amenity, I really don't see value in that as a quote unquote amenity to meet our ordinance as set forth. Second thing, and this is more back for Shane as well, that I see on this is, that huge bend, should or shouldn't this collector ever go on? That doesn't even look like where we're leading in the direction for that collector, for that connector. I mean, is it meant to go southeast like that at that point?
Of this portion of the connector at the FMDP/construction plan approval phase. So that is just shown conceptually and it's still a work in progress,
Okay.
working with the developer.
So potential that if it's rerouted, could lose at least one, possibly two lots at FMDP on this.
Not going to go that far, but I know that it's subject to change. And if once we set the alignment, the according changes will be made to the development.
Very well. Okay. Perfect. That addresses mine. Please, Commissioner.
Some of the concern I've gotten, kind of what you spoke to, is essentially, and to the naked eye, if you blink at this entrance at Ritter Drive, you're going to think you're still in Kelsey Glen. Part of my concern is wanting 50% of the fiber cement siding, even just 12 homes. It's kind of a direct reflection of Kelsey Glen. If you're going to connect to a subdivision, in my opinion, and the only access point is through a subdivision, I think it needs to have the same quality of building as the subdivision around it. So that's kind of one of my concerns, is I think if you're going to connect to something like Kelsey Glen, you're going to need to provide full brick homes. That's it for me.
That is a condition, Ms. Hamlin, that's a condition of Kelsey Glen, is they didn't get the same waivers. They're 100% brick and stone. Is that correct?
We actually did not have that.
Ordinance at that
regulation.
time?
Correct.
So there are some variations and allowances.
But they're saying behind me that not on Ritter Drive, on the newer sections of Kelsey Glen, it's all brick. But that was not an approval condition of the original PMDD.
Thank you. Commissioner, please.
Thank you. I just want to start off with just some clarification on some things here. Who actually owns the land? Because the applicant is stated as George Wright. I think he was the previous landowner. And so who is the actual landowner?
It's
Sure.
listed on your,
Is it? If it's that small print that I don't have my glasses. and
sure,
can't
it
read,
says it's George Wright and Clamshell Properties. And it's on your cover sheet.
Yeah.
And it is
Yeah.
really small, so you would definitely need your glasses.
So Mr. Wright is also part of the,
He's retaining a portion of the parcel, from what I understand.
and who owns again, I don't have my glasses. Who owns the property that's adjacent on the west side that connects to John Wright Road?
Are you talking about this property here?
Correct.
I believe that's Dr. Wright's property.
Shane, do you want to clarify? I know Shane looking like you're wanting to say something, so.
Can't speak for the applicant right now if they're proceeding to subdivide, but the property was sold, I believe, at the end of June or the 1st of July. And according to the city/county tax map, it only shows one owner.
Do we know who that owner is?
I believe it's.
All these questions are going to make sense here in a minute, I promise.
That's okay.
The owner that's listed on here is Clamshell Properties, I believe. It shows them owning the whole parcel. Nothing's been subdivided yet.
Okay. So the reason why I was asking the questions is I have big concerns about any access through Kelsey Glen on a road that can handle the capacity of 24 homes. So since the property is adjacent to this, is owned by the same entity, why are we not having an access road to John Wright Road? Maybe that's a question for the applicant, because I think that would solve a couple of problems with that connecting into Kelsey Glen. Maybe we'll hear from the applicant here in a minute, and he can answer, or she can answer that question. This is coming in as a R1, correct, from the county, which is equal to an RS 40. Okay, so they're actually looking for they're actually looking to increase the density. So to go from which RS 40 is basically a 1 acre lot. So they're actually looking to increase density on this property with this proposal.
Well, the county just changed their regulations, if you all remember, to R1 minimum lot size is 40,000 square foot now. No 25,000 square foot.
Correct. And we just
As
passed that
previously.
tonight during the consent
We passed a minor amendment to our existing
from 1
sub
acre to
regs.
40,000.
Correct, to just be more in line with that county regulation of 40,000 versus the 43.5.
Just a few other comments, and I really didn't get into the plans as much because I've got bigger, broader concerns. I'm the District 3 Commissioner. Kelsey Glenn falls in my district, and I've been working with the folks over at Kelsey Glenn with a number of issues related to an adjacent farm owner, landowner. My concern is we're going to run into the same situation with this neighborhood. This individual has pushed up a 6 to 8 foot berm right behind houses, Kelsey Glen, which is now causing those houses in certain situations with heavy rain to flood their backyards, almost to the point where it's near coming into the back of their house. He's also has planted bamboo behind the houses of Kelsey Glen. So we have drainage issues. We have issues that are compounded by this individual. I'm hesitant to even look at any project that touches this individual's property, given the issues that we're experiencing right now. And this is only just going to compound those. So that's the concern. Ritter Drive is a major concern. The fact that they own land that connects into John Wright Road should be a serious consideration for an entrance and an exit. And then, of course, the issues with the landowner, the farm owner, and all those combined just doesn't. Unfortunately, it doesn't bode well for me on this particular project. So until I get some comfort, I'm not going to be supporting this at the BOC. So anyway, I know it's a recommendation tonight, but I want to at least get my comments on record. But those for the applicant, just to give you some foresight into what I'm going to be talking about October 24th. You'll hear them again. So that's it.
Very well. Further questions, comments? Commissioner Raps, please.
Yeah, I guess I'm batting clean up here. Just want to echo a couple comments, and I've heard an earful from folks within the development, and I've shared with them as much information as I could about this development. My biggest concern is what's been said before is 16 plus 23 does not equal 25. Ritter Drive was designed as an access lane, and I would say until the Western Connector is constructed, every home in this development will be accessing through Ritter Drive, and all the construction will be accessed through Kelsey Glen. And that's a big concern for myself and fellow residents in the development. I see the annexation is primarily from the creek to the east, staying away from Jordan Donna's property proper. When the applicant comes up, I'll have some questions like that, like Scott stated, or Commissioner Hefner stated. And I think I'll save the rest of my comments for the applicant when he comes up, and maybe something in closing once the citizens speak.
Very well. That being said, let's ask for the applicant come up and name and address for the record.
Civil Site Designer, CSDG. Good to see everybody tonight. It's been a long time. You know, it's nice to bring before you a small subdivision, a 23 lot subdivision. Usually they're much bigger than this. So it's nice to bring a more boutique and more smaller development. Like we've been told before, it's 23 lots on 17 acres. We're asking for annexation and 1.3 units an acre, so RS30 zoning. Surrounding zoning is RS15, so we're asking for not RS20, we're asking for RS30. The standard 15,000 square foot average, which is the requirement of the PUD now. These are all 70-foot wide lots, so comparable with Kelsey Glen next door. The land use policy out here is medium density. We're asking for low density, so we're not even asking for the medium density. The amenities, the play area, we're open for discussion on that. It's rare for us to come with a 23 lot development. We thought more trails, which is what we're showing for amenities, more appropriate for the subdivision, and really keeps more smaller play area. As you guys know, the HOA has to pay and maintain those. So you get too many amenities, the HOA fees are pretty high. Again, we have 23 lots, so that's why you see a lot of trails in this project. I encourage you also to flip to the last pages. That's the elevations for the homes. These are nice homes. I would say they're very comparable to next door Kelsey Glen. Again, these are the same lots, probably a little bigger on the square footage of the lots, but these are very nice elevations, very nice homes. This is not the same developer. It's not the same builder. This is Steve Griffith, if you know him from Mount Juliet. He is the Clamshell LLC, SRG. So he's a Mount Juliet native. He purchased his property in June and just trying to develop the property that he purchased. I know we're driving through Kelsey Glen. There's been some discussions about the variance. The variance just is 24 foot is an access street. This is the 22-foot access lane. If the variance is frowned upon tonight, we simply could move the curbs out 1 foot to become access street. So we're really talking about taking the existing curb, moving out 1 foot to meet current regulations. I think there's probably better things to do than spend the money on that. That money could probably go somewhere else in the city. But if the variance can't be granted and this body would rather us do an access street for that section of Ritter Drive, we're happy to do that. I just don't think moving a curb out 1 foot on both sides to make it an access street is wise for the neighbors. I just don't think that's a good idea for the neighbors. We are completely downstream of Kelsey Glen. All of our water goes away from Kelsey Glen. We do not drain to the ponds. We don't drain to the situation you were speaking of with the gentleman to our north. I hope he doesn't do it to us. That's Lick Creek. Our creek on the left side of this development is Lick Creek. That's a FEMA regulated creek. If he dams up that creek, that's a pretty big deal. It's a FEMA regulated stream. So again, our water drains completely away from Kelsey Glen. Again, my client owns this property. George Wright owns a small, if I can show y'all. George Wright owns this little triangle still. That's my client plans to purchase that, but these are two separate tracts of land. We don't have access to John Wright Road. We've set up the collector road to go to John Wright Road eventually, but we don't own property that goes to John Wright Road. Again, the materials, the 50-50 that we proposed, we're okay with staff's comments on making it, I think it was 50% to be fully brick and stone and 50% with some hardy, just to have some variety. But we want to be consistent with the neighborhood. If there's more out there, we're fine. These are nice custom homes, so they're not a tract builder. So if you guys feel like we need to do something more, just let us know. And yeah, I'm here to answer any questions, and I appreciate it and ask for your approval tonight. And thank you.
Yes. question. You made the comment that, the applicant doesn't own that parcel to the west. Is the county records incorrect?
Yeah, they just have not updated the GIS.
So the county,
The county GIS has not updated that line. My client purchased, and it shows it probably correctly on your packet. They purchased this track. So this track is what Clamshell LLC owns today.
but isn't the co-applicant Dr. Wright?
For this little triangle. That is correct.
But we're, okay. Still,
That is correct.
so I'm still wondering, is he part of this project or not?
He's not part of the project. He will sell the additional land once his approval's complete. He sold this land to these folks, obviously, back in June.
So he did sell it.
He did. He
Okay.
sold this backfield.
He sold the
to my
backfield.
client. Mhm.
And they're getting ready to purchase the field that does have access to John Wright Road.
Mhm.
Okay, we'll need to get, we don't have to, we certainly need to get some clarification on this before the first reading of the
Yep,
BOC.
understood.
But I'm hearing conflicting.
My client does not own any land out to John Wright Road.
Okay, but Dr. Wright is an applicant on this
He is,
submittal.
that is correct. I understand
Okay.
what you're saying. He is selling this little 1 acre triangle to finish out the parcel. That's why he won't sell the front parcel.
Okay, we can get into this more
Understood.
in October, but
Yep.
I'm still really confused. If he's not
Understood.
part of this project, why is his name on the application?
Understood. Well, we can discuss.
And
it
if he's
more.
on the application, then I think that opens the door for that access road needs to go through that property and tie into John Wright Road. So anyway, just trying to sort through the
Understood.
static.
We can definitely discuss it more.
Sure.
I understand what you're saying.
And I know I apologize. I know you've been trying to get a hold of me and I just
We've been playing phone tag. No problem at all.
came back on a red eye from Vegas.
understand.
Last I was in at 1:30
I understand.
AM this morning, so I might seem a little cranky tonight, but probably not as bad as the last planning commission meeting, but anyways, all right. That's good.
Commissioner Rast?
Point of clarification, just for the homeowners. The discussion of widening it out another foot. That property, but from the sidewalk to the road is city streets. It doesn't involve eminent domain or purchase or anything like that.
That's true.
Just want to make that clear, just in case anybody, when I first heard it, I started thinking about it. I'm like, wait a minute. And then the engineering mind stepped in and I was like, yeah, it's public right away. So that's something that is, on the table if we decided to force that issue. Lastly, as far as the variance request for the rezone, I'm sure my timing is wrong, but that was a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, when we changed the rezone to 1 acre lots or the 40,000. We passed that ordinance some time ago.
That are not in the city.
Okay,
So for this lot, if they were to develop in the county and not ask for annexation, they would have to comply with that subdivision regulation.
okay,
Which would be, it was 43.5 an acre, but we reduced it tonight to 40,000 to be more in line with the county zoning regulations.
okay. Don't know if I'm in favor of making an exception this soon.
They're not
Yeah,
asking for a variance to this.
No,
To that tonight. The variances you have listed in your staff report are what they're asking
Okay.
for tonight. I think you may be confused by my statement earlier.
Yeah.
Should they develop in the county and not ask for annexation, which is they're asking for
refer to that.
annexation, they would have to develop it under those regulations.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
thank you.
If I may, about the county also, the county subdivision regs, they allow you to cluster, which means you can make small as lots as you want. So the 40,000 square foot requirement is how many number of lots you can have in the county. You're still able to do tiny lots in the county. I just want to make sure as you guys look at subdivisions in the future, the cluster ordinance is still applicable in the county. So it's not a requirement to stay at 40,000 square foot. It's just that's how many number of lots you have. Okay.
It's their version of a PUD, basically.
Yeah.
Density, it's density. It's what they're after.
Further questions or comments? Seeing none at this time, thank you, Ryan.
Thank you.
I'd like to ask for citizen comments in regards to this item on our agenda. Any citizens wishing to make comment are welcome and encouraged to do so. Please come to the microphone, state your name and address for the record.
My name is Trisha Farmer. I live at 8015 Ritter Drive, and I have written down what I was going to say, so I stay on task. Okay. So this development appears to be predicated on the development of the Western Connector, but there are no plans or funding nor approvals that have been in place for that to happen, which would mean that for the foreseeable future, all traffic for this development would come through our street, Ritter Drive. And for our whole neighborhood. So as we come out to the back of Kelsey Glen Drive. And for those who may not understand, Ritter Drive, though it says it's a drive, was constructed to be a cul-de-sac. So those of us who have built homes on this street did so believing that our homes were in a cul-de-sac. We are aware that Jones talked about the potential for extending, but they abandoned that proposal. And so when we all purchased our homes, and it will be our 3rd year anniversary this month, it was under the belief and understanding that this would be a quiet portion of the neighborhood. The city approved our construction, the permits and plans based on the very specific number of homes on Ritter. And these plans would and allowing the variance would upend the prior approvals and the trust that we neighbors purchased in the neighborhood for. We all purchased with the understanding that it was in a cul-de-sac and the only outlet would be Bennett Drive, another street that connects to ours, which also has 2 cul-de-sacs. There are a dozen kids, my children included, that play hockey, that play sports in that cul-de-sac every afternoon. Families purchased these homes believing it'd be in an area that would have limited traffic. And I ask you to put yourselves in our positions and how it would feel if you purchased a home. You built a home. We didn't just purchase the house after the fact. I built strategically. And in fact, I built 2 houses in Kelsey Glen. I built one house on Winslow Drive, and I built a second house down at the bottom because a cul-de-sac lot opened up, and I wanted that lot because I wanted to live in a cul-de-sac. So it's very personal to us to have a developer come who has access potentially to John Wright Road and to want to punch through our cul-de-sac, and every single person on our street paid premium pricing and premium lots and purchased with the belief that we were living in a cul-de-sac. I'm not against development. I just feel like I need to say that. I know it's farmland. I understand that we're in a time of progress and the city's booming. But I also think that we should keep the best interest of the people that already do live here at heart with this decision. And there are those of us that live in Kelsey Glen and those specifically on Ritter Drive that will be severely impacted, and our quality of life will be diminished if this proposal moves forward. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Hetal Patel. I'm a resident on 3086 Oxford Drive, and I'm one of the board of directors for the Kelsey Glen HOA. I want to start my statement by saying what Trisha just said, that we do welcome development, we do welcome progress, but not at the cost of the safety of our children. There is so many kids on those streets that are playing out there. What Doug said, there's, school buses loading and unloading on those streets. The safety is my biggest concern. And my second concern is if the construction traffic is going to go through Oxford Drive, which is we live right at that stop sign where Ethan and Oxford is. And it is definitely a speedway. People don't stop. And our mailbox has gotten knocked down so many times during just the construction of the Jones homes. I want to know who's going to pay for my mailbox, because we're done. We're tired of getting it replaced over and over and over. We also have a small child that likes to play outside, and this construction traffic going through so fast through Oxford, it scares me. It scares for the safety of my child as well. I myself has been, exposed to getting in multiple wrecks on that road when trying to turn left in my own driveway. And this, it scares me. So that's the reason why we want to let everybody know in the Planning Commission that when you make a decision, think about the future, but also think about, that the kids are our future as well. And we want to make sure that they are safe. And we welcome progress, but like I said, think about the kids first. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Joe Gould, live at 1013 Kelsey Glen Drive. And trying to form out my thought here, but the developer could have done this the right way and alleviated all the concerns by just getting access from the same owner of the property to connect to John Wright Road. And if there was a reason why the owner didn't want to sell that, then in my opinion, they should have figured out something different. But they bought land. It's not in compliance in terms of the way they want to do it. And now they're asking for permission, even though it just seems to me like they could have done it the right way the first time.
Thank you. Any additional citizen comments at this time?
Hi, my name is Julie Wood. I live at 7028 Bennett Drive in Kelsey Glen. We purchased our home a little over 3 years ago. We used to live in Spring Hill when we moved here 12 years ago from Georgia. If anybody's ever been to Spring Hill lately, you can see what a nightmare it is to get in and out of that town. The neighborhoods are inside of neighborhoods, inside of neighborhoods, inside of neighborhoods. The traffic is awful. And we moved out of there after 2 years because it seemed that the planning in that city was just they approved everything that came across their desk, it seemed like. And when we were looking, we took 5 years to figure out where we wanted to build, where we wanted to be long-term. We chose Mount Juliet because it seemed that it was being developed the right way. Things were more thoughtfully planned out. It was obvious as a potential purchaser. We have a main artery running through our city at Mount Juliet Road. Spring Hill doesn't have that. And they're in a disaster situation trying to build an exchange at 840 and Buckner Drive to get in and out of their town. So seeing a neighborhood being placed inside of a neighborhood just gives me bad Spring Hill vibes. But more so from a selfish standpoint, I purchased my lot, my tiny lot, where I'm very close to my neighbor. I purchased my lot not knowing the setbacks, but I'm very close to each neighbor on each side. But when I look out my back deck, I see sunsets, I see deer, I see horses, I see turkey. It's makes that closeness to my neighbors more worth it to be able to have that view. So knowing that I'm going to have a deck or a patio or someone else's backyard is very concerning, but I understand there has to be progress. But my main concern is the construction of the project. Our neighborhood was built from the front to the back. So whenever there was blasting occurring, it was always way in the back, away from any existing structures. So I want to know, does this developer plan to be blasting out my back door? There's a 20-foot easement in the proposal. What is that going to do to my house? Is it going to damage it? I don't know anything about structural engineering. That's not my degree, but it is a concern for me as a homeowner. We're on a crawl space. These look like they might be slabs. I don't know. The construction traffic is definitely a huge concern. To my knowledge, when Jones Company was building Kelsey Glen and they wanted to create the access point on John Wright Road, they were supposed to pay a very expensive bond to the county to utilize that road for construction traffic. I'm not super knowledgeable on this, but I think that was the case. It was some crazy sum, $260,000. They didn't want to pay it. So they kept coming through the front of our neighborhood for years. If anybody is familiar with Kelsey Glen, you know it took 12, 13 years to build. There are residents in there that went through 12 to 13 years of construction traffic. We're talking dust, rocks, delivery trucks with bricks, mailboxes, street signs being taken out, constant messes. I paid $700 to clean the exterior of my home once the construction was done. So to know that all that's going to start over is disconcerting. Losing my view, I paid a lot premium for that, of course. And I did want to clarify that in Kelsey Glen, 100% of the homes are 3-side brick or 4-side brick. So, seeing that these could be quite different is also a concern. I think that's all I have. Thank you for letting me speak today.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. My name is Eric Chera. I live at 5020 Winslow Drive. I back up to the same field that Julie backs up to, so I see what she sees every day. And I agree with everything everyone else has said. One other thing I want to point out that no one's mentioned, if construction traffic has to come from Old Lebanon Dirt Road down Oxford Drive, there is a roundabout on Oxford Drive. When they were building the existing phases, every single sign on that roundabout got ran over by construction traffic. So I'm just going to echo what everyone else has said. There needs to be a second entrance or a dedicated entrance to this new neighborhood that is not Ritter Drive. Ritter Drive was not designed to handle the construction traffic. And it's something that needs to be considered as part of this proposal. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional citizen comments at this time? Seeing none, we'll close our citizen comments. Anybody else after that? If so, come on up and make a line.
So basically, I live on 8010 Ritter Drive, right on the corner of Bennett and Ritter.
Name?
Oh, Bruce Millman.
Thank you.
Sorry. I heard something when before about widening Ritter Drive to make it accessible. One comment I want to make on this is I live on the corner. I spent 3 weeks with my builder to design the elevation of how I can approach into my driveway. If a foot gets taken away from my driveway, I have 2 cars that are stuck in my driveway that I can never get out because the approach would never make it. It would have to be too steep and my cars would not make it in and out. So I just want to mention that to keep that in mind when since the road can't handle the volume, and the only way to make it handle volume would be to extend it. You have other people that have sports cars that are low to the ground and can't take elevation. And I bought my house and had the builder design the entrance of my driveway, how high my garage was. We had to actually lower the garage to make it go not as steep up the driveway, and that would completely take that away. So I just want to make you think of that when you pass this along.
Yeah, thank you. Any additional citizen comments? All right, at which time we'll close our citizen comments. And at this time, I'm looking for a recommendation in regards to this item on our agenda. Please, Commissioner.
President can answer this. How many homes are in Kelsey Glen?
For the record, 534 homes in Kelsey Glen. Any other questions or comments? Commissioner Searcy?
At Ritter Drive, they keep talking about the cul-de-sac. Is this where the beginning of this subdivision is developed? The cul-de-sac this is a dead end cul-de-sac and they opening it up to develop the subdivision,
Yes,
correct?
yes.
First was signage posted. No talking from the crowd, please. Was there signage posted at the end of the cul-de-sac per ordinance?
I couldn't recollect. I was trying to think if there was or not, but I'm going to defer to the person
Neighbor
lives right beside
that
beside the
that
cul-de-sac.
drives out and sees it every day?
Yeah.
Neighbor, is there a sign posted at the
Yeah.
end of that cul-de-sac that says future development?
Yeah, I'm trying to keep the personal and professional separated here. But yeah, no, there was never a sign there that says, temporary dead end or anything like that on that cul-de-sac.
Say you are a citizen too.
I'm not going to be a citizen.
You don't give up that right.
Yeah. All right, at which time I'm asking for a recommendation regards this item on our agenda.
For a negative recommendation. I'd like to include with that negative recommendation, staff, comments, and requirements to move forward with the negative recommendation.
It's a motion and a second for a negative recommendation. All those in favor signify by saying aye and raising your hand.
Aye.
Against, abstentions. Advance here. All right. That is a negative recommendation.
All right.
Abstained. All right, next, project up on our agenda, is a recommendation item back to the Board of Commissioners, falls underneath out-of-city sewer requests. Item 6.1 is to review the out-of-city sewer extension request for the Grove of Nottable located at 105 Cedar Grove Church Road. Ms. Hamlin.
Can I actually make a announcement to the Kelsey Glen residents that are here tonight?
Please, please.
before-
Don't leave yet.
So a negative recommendation.
Yeah.
A negative recommendation will still move forward to the Board of
Board of
Commissioners. And that will be heard tentatively on October 23rd, unless the applicant chooses to either not move forward or defer. So it's important for the resident to know that while it was a negative recommendation, it still can move forward to the BOC with that negative recommendation.
You
I
guys
just want
catch
to let
that?
them know that tonight.
You guys catch that? I see some of y'all still with us, so caught all that? Great. Thank you, guys.
For letting me interrupt you. I'm
Yes,
sorry.
no, please, please. You've got the floor either which way because, comments on 6.1.
I'm going to defer to Mr. Shane.
Mr. Shane.
So the applicant is requesting, so this property is located at Cedar Grove Church Road in Nottable. They were previously approved for 5 taps back in 2020. And they're looking to place a tap on the 6th lot of this subdivision and provide an easement for the church that recently got approved for out-of-city sewer last year. And based on your recommendation, I've provided my comments below. And typically, in this part of town, the city inherited the sewer system and the infrastructure that was there previously. And there is no properties on that side of Nottable that are annexed currently, but there is customers on the Mount Juliet sewer system in this area. So I would suggest a positive recommendation for this request due to precedent of the area, the history, and the infrastructure that's already up there that this project will be tying into.
So just to clarify one quick question on this. We got 5 that we've approved for out-of-city sewer service right there. It looks like they've started construction on 2 at this point. This one will be, because our diagram for 1491 Nottable includes basically the whole piece of property. Where will this particular tap be?
This tap will be fronting for this tap will be provided for the lot fronting Cedar Grove Church Road. I could not pull up the county had not subdivided it on their GIS yet.
Okay. So kind of, I mean, we believe it's
There-
kind of
But there is a final
northernmost
plat that has been approved for this subdivision.
up there.
Let me wrap up church.
Why there were only 5 taps approved previously. You guys remember, they did not want to annex because our lot size, would prevent them to have 6 lots. So the commission, at the time, the Board of Commissioners, only granted them 5 taps because that's all of the lots that they could get should they have annexed into the city. And that 6th lot is deemed currently unbuildable because they do not have adequate room for soils and backup soils, nor do they have access to our sewer system. So that's why they have asked for this sewer extension tonight, kind of late in the game. So they'll have to revise that plat to pull off that unbuildable lot note should this move forward at BOC and ultimately get approved.
And they'd have to ultimately go to Wilson County Planning Commission to replat, right? Is that
Well, so
correct?
it's in the UGB, so we would see that, and it would just be a final plat amendment, basically to remove that note, because then they would have access to sewer should it get approved.
And you guys can approve that at staff level, can't
We
you?
would approve
Correct.
that at staff level, yes, sir.
Questions, comments? This time, let's call for citizen comments. Any citizens wishing to make comment on this item are welcome and encouraged to do so. Please come to the microphone and name and address for the record. See no citizen comments this time. Looking for a recommendation in regards to this item on the agenda. Make a motion for a positive recommendation, subject to staff comments.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye and raising your hand. Aye. Against? Abstentions? Mr. Searcy? 4? Okay, very well. That is a positive recommendation. Did you? I tried to glance over at you. Yeah. Next item up on our agenda is also a recommendation item back to the Board of Commissioners. It's item 6.2. It's to review the out-of-city sewer extension request for the Cove at Mount Juliet, located at 3150 Nautical Road.
Background on this one, you guys approved a conceptual plan for this project not very long ago, which included some cabins and a wedding venue. We were trying to get, the commissioner of the district was trying to promote tourism within our city and feature the lake by a zoning ordinance amendment, which ultimately got deferred indefinitely. So they have decided to move forward with their project in the county. So they have a Board of Zoning Appeals request at the county level to proceed with their development at this time, and are seeking sewer outside the city, which I'll let Shane go over, but just a little background on why you're seeing this for an out of city sewer and why it's not in the city.
Very well.
Thank you.
Shane, please.
This property is also located off Nautical Road, and this is past the split at Saundersville Road. There are no properties in this area, this vicinity, that are currently in the city limits. Again, it is also served by sewer that was part of a previous utility district that was absorbed into the city of Mount Juliet. So there were customers beforehand that were on the sewer that are still on out of city sewer being served by the city of Mount Juliet. For this development to work, the developer would be responsible for a pump station that would then tie into the force main that runs out in front of this property. And citing those reasons, kind of similar to what we just had in this part of town, staff recommends positive recommendation for this as well. We do have the capacity to serve this development.
And if I'm correct in reading your comments in regards to this, they additionally have to build a pump station, correct?
That is correct.
So they can't just directly tap to that 6-inch
sir.
main right there. They'd have to pump it.
They'll have to gravity everything down to a pump station and then send it to the force main.
And that would be built per your standards or city standards.
That is correct.
Just out of curiosity right there, if we have a pump station at that location of Nottable, does that, I know there's really not much else to annex or large, I guess there are some large tracks on Nottable, more towards the Nottable and Saundersville area right there. If any of that should ever come forward to the city and request, does that pump station help that or not help that?
That pump station would be a private pump station for this development only.
So that would, that's interesting. So that they would be required to maintain it as well then.
That is correct.
Wow. So they build it, maintain it. That's very well. Ouch. Yeah. Further questions or comments? Good to know.
I just think,
Please.
I think it's just I mean, on the surface and not being a utility guy, that's certainly, seems like a win-win for the city. Private pump station, privately maintained, it's not a burden to the city except for just the additional, fluids that may be coming down the sewer. But other than that, I see it as a win-win. In this case, I haven't seen this before.
I gotta say I've not either. Commissioner Hefner?
Not sure this might be a city attorney question, but I thought we changed required annexation. We no longer approved out of city sewer requests that the undeveloped land had to be annexed into the city to get access to the sewer. I thought we passed that last year, or maybe it was a year and a half ago.
But it's all determined whether the city actually agrees to annex. If the city decides not to annex, then they can go ahead and request the out of city sewer.
Have they applied for annexation for us to deny it?
No, that's actually the subreg, Charles, that you're reading. Commissioner Hefner is talking about the ordinance that they approved.
Yeah.
That does not allow out of city sewer any longer.
Yeah, and it stemmed from a couple of projects from
It was
2-3 years ago. And Canebrake was one of them.
passed an ordinance. But I know we've passed several since then. For instance, on Northwest Rutland Road, I think that one got passed, and that's what he's asking about. Shane, do you want to go over that? I know that came from Mr. Barlow when he was still here.
I believe that regulation was part of the subdivision regs on a residential development.
Which this would be, because it's not developed.
Miss Jill's looking it up in official acts.
Google.
Well, she's looking
Miss
it up in
Google.
our, official acts ordinance listings to see if it had been reversed. I know Shane and I talked about this previously too.
I would have
regarding
remembered
these.
that one. It's getting spotty nowadays, but the age, but I would have remembered that one.
Mhm.
I could be wrong.
Because that would,
Well, I think too, when we did that subdivision regulation amendment, which we amended tonight, I think it
Yeah.
gave a little more comfort to that. So,
Correct. If we denied the annexation, then they could
Correct.
always,
yes,
but
Which
we have to
is-
deny it.
which is what Charles was reading to you.
Yeah, but that's under the subdivision regs.
Correct, which only the planning commission owned.
Right.
And this was at BOC. I'm pretty sure.
Sorry. That was the next question I was going to ask, but both of these are all of these sewer requests are referrals.
Could still take action on it, but if we
Correct.
find
We'd still
that, they would
take-
have to request
still take
before
action.
second reading of BOC.
But it may affect the recommendation here.
Sense?
And I'm indifferent on the project itself.
Just make sure you can.
But I
mean,
want to make
that's
sure we can
legally
do it.
do it.
So I think actually what we did, this is back in 2019, and I do remember the same thing as you, but all I'm finding here is, and this rings a bell, is where we doubled their fees to the 100%. So they have to pay double fees. That was in 2019.
That's while I was on board. Yeah, it was about a year and a half ago. I don't know, well, maybe, I don't want to keep delaying this.
Question I'm asking was, are we saying that this ordinance was repealed as in no out of city sewer? Period.
We amended the ordinance to effectively eliminate out of city sewer requests unless they annex. It was required, they had to be in the city. And maybe that falls under our subdivision regs, which would still apply here, correct? Because they are this project is in the UGB.
It is, which is why I'm thinking that it was changed, because when we did that sub-reg amendment, it gave you guys a little more comfort level,
Right.
but
So assuming this is still UGB, they're going into the county, they would still need to apply for annexation, which we would need to vote on. If we denied it, then they could come back and
they're not
request.
asking for a subdivision.
Not, well,
So let us, just give us a second to look
okay.
at it.
I remember it occurred right around the time, or maybe just after we approved the ones on Nonneville before, where we gave them the 5 taps. It was around that timeline.
She's looking it up. If we can find it under ordinance or resolution. Worst case scenario, we can defer a month. If we can't find anything and further investigate it. But I know Shane and I talked about that a lot too.
This will be on the October BOC. This will be on
The
the
23rd.
So it's a
Well,
month.
that's true. Like if you guys just made it conditional pending what we find. And maybe go back and add that condition to the previous. Would that work, Charles? Yes, he says. It's
So
like
conditional on,
Compliance with.
compliance with any ordinances that would prevent out of city sewer.
Okay.
And that'll give us some time to make sure that one didn't cancel out the other.
correct.
Because this one is not a subdivision, so it would not, that subdivision regulation wouldn't apply to it.
Yeah, we got to fix that. Okay.
Well, that's basically on about lot sizes though.
Well,
It
yeah.
dictates the lot
I
sizes.
think that's what.
They don't have to annex if they don't, they can ask. I mean, we don't have to grant. I mean, every single thing you see on out of city sewer, it says you guys have the right to refuse outside of city sewer, no matter. You don't have to approve it tonight. You
Right.
have the
It's-
right to refuse it.
Well, it's a recommendation, so it's just.
Right,
would
but-
carry.
Ultimately, the city has the right to refuse it.
So whatever the motion is, what either negative or positive, it would be contingent on complying with
With
our,
the code.
with our
Within
code.
the other codes.
Any
and or
approved
ordinances.
ordinances regulating out of city sewer.
Okay.
And we can make that as a condition. That way we can,
We can make that as a
Yeah.
condition.
yeah, you could.
Yeah.
Do we need to reopen 6-1? Based on what?
It's table 6-2, but that's a valid point. Had to figure out Robert's rules. All right, with that being said, let's ask for citizen comments in regards to this item. Any citizen wishing to make comment, welcome, encouraged to do so, and name and address for the record, please.
Thank you. I'm Steve Hart at 1208 Horseshoe Cove in the Horseshoe Cove subdivision and part of the board of Horseshoe Cove. And we're here to oppose the granting of this request for out of city sewer extension because it's based on a request for commercial development on a piece of property that is zoned for agricultural or residential purposes presently. So it's kind of the question is which one of these is the cart and the horse? Or is this the camel getting his nose under the edge of the tent, coming in and getting the permission from you all or the recommendation to go ahead and put in sewer services for commercial development on property that's not zoned for that? And the impact of on the sewer system has to be tremendously greater for this proposal they have for commercial development than it would be if the 20 acres were developed for residential purposes as it's presently zoned. And we heard that the earlier ordinance about allowing commercial rental and development near the lake was deferred indefinitely. I'd like to think a lot of that had to do with the fact that a lot of citizens turned out at the Board of Commissioners meeting and opposed the passage of that ordinance. And they aren't here tonight because I just learned about this being on this agenda at 4 o'clock today because there's no signage out at the Cove property formerly known as Cane Cove. Nothing there indicating there was anything on the Planning Commission agenda for that item. And somebody just brought that up and made us aware of it. But what they're proposing is, even in the items you've got, it says cabins occupancy. They had a meeting with some of the residential people that lived around there, the developer did. And he said that at least 90 plus cabins were going to be developed for commercial rental purposes. A big event venue, a recreation area, a clubhouse, a pool house, a chapel with 100 seats. And the items that are listed on your report in here are just estimates because earlier the developer was not able to give anything specific hardcore about, well, how many people will be able to occupy the event venue? How many people will be able to use the pool clubhouse? This stuff was all just in flux and in a state of development. Horseshoe Cove is specifically going to be impacted by this, I think, because if you look at page 62 of your materials, we are the part of the sewer system that's just northwest of where this spur is going to be for them to go onto. So if this creates problems with the sewer system, it looks like it's ultimately going to be for our subdivision where the problems are created because we're kind of the end of that line on that sewer line. And we just want to make sure that our opposition to this approval for sewer extension services for commercial purposes for an area that's not zoned for commercial development does not just go forward and get a positive recommendation. And we will say we intend to show up wherever it's appropriate to fight any request for zoning changes and variances. Like I said, we had a good turnout of people opposing the ordinance vote when it came before the Board of Commissioners, and we expect that to occur again. But we request that you submit a negative recommendation on the request for the extension of sewer services.
Thank you. Any additional citizen comments? This time we'll close citizen comments and looking for a recommendation regards this item on our agenda.
For a negative recommendation. And then we've got to capture the language on
Still capture that.
Yeah, including staff comments and compliance.
So
Okay.
that's why you see it tonight, because it's a recommendation. I'll let Charles further clarify resolution versus ordinance. But I just wanted to clear that up while we're here and our citizens can hear that as well.
Yes, a resolution is a one-time act, such as approving a contract or saying you support something. So that was in essence saying we're not going to approve any more of these going forward, but that it's not binding.
Okay, yeah, it's the will of the body of the Board of Commissioners.
And we can't deny their application. like, we
Correct.
cannot not accept their request. It will have to move forward through the process.
To the BOC. Okay.
Yes,
Okay. Thanks for clarifying that. But yeah, the resolution is the will of the BOC,
yes, sir.
not law. So, okay. Thank you. I knew.
I know, me too. And I'm glad that
I was starting to lose my mind there a minute. I'm pretty sure I voted on.
So your motion?
It doesn't change my, motion, so it's still negative recommendation. We could probably strike the, in compliance, contingent on compliance, because we just found out it is not an ordinance, so, but it is still a negative recommendation.
Motion, second, Stan. A motion and a second for a negative recommendation. All those in favor signify by saying aye and raising their hand. Aye. Against? Abstentions? Is a negative recommendation. All right, real quick, before we move on to the next item, I have a personal ownership in the next item on our agenda, and as such, I'm going to step away from the board, remove myself, and be a citizen of Mount Juliet. Over to my vice chairman, Commissioner Rast.
I'll scoot over.
Yeah.
All right, the next item on the agenda is item 6.3. It's a recommendation item to the board. It's review the out-of-city sewer extension request for the MWAM subdivision located at 9911 Central Pike. Staff comments?
Recommend annexation for this lot, due to the proximity and how far it is away from current city limits, just our emergency personnel and those types of things, our public works trying to get out there and chipper truck, it just doesn't make sense. So I would recommend denial on out of city sewer for this one. I'll let Shane, that's just your comments from the planner.
Okay.
Thank you.
Juliet currently does not have any viable way of serving this development with sewer. The closest infrastructure is about a mile either way from this site. The Winfield and the Walton's Grove subdivision are the closest points of sewer for this development. Being that it's 7 lots, the staff's recommendation is to deny sewer availability because it is not feasible for us to serve this resident right now. And annexation as well. There is no properties around this area that are in the city limits. So staff recommends denial, but as I said, if you decide to go against this, conditions are provided as shown.
Okay.
And just to note that we did follow the subdivision regulations, talking to the applicant on this project, meeting with them, that we are within meeting the subdivision regs on this one. So.
Okay. Okay, at this time, we'll take any citizens' comments on this item. State your name and address in case we don't know you.
We acquired this property with the intent to develop it within the county. Obviously, we fall within the UGB for the city. We're aware of that. Actually, the ordinance that we amended earlier tonight, we are the first development to kind of be heard underneath that ordinance that we approved in March of this year. I know we amended the ordinance tonight to go to 40,000 square feet. We're almost in compliance of that. What we're trying to create is 8-lot executive community. These are probably $1 million plus houses that we want to serve right there. Kind of the intent of this and my desire was to stay close to home is something that I do, but at the same time, because of other things that I do, not be within the city, so things like this don't come about. But they did come about. So we actually do request denial. That is what we are seeking. We do not seek city services. We're not seeking density. We've got good soils for good septics. including secondary soils, should septics fail on this particular piece of property. I do want to make one note on this, which I feel like is important, and we are willing to do on this. If you look at the city sewer atlas, the sewer atlas or potential future for the expansion of sewer does run through a stream that crosses through this. It's something that we intend not to get in, not to harm or whatnot. And as such, we are willing to grant an easement back to the city of Mount Juliet that would include an access easement for the sewer to cross should it ever cross that area right there. I feel like that's an important thing for the development. If it ever gets out there, we're not contiguous to any of the city at this point in time. As Shane referenced right there, it's over a mile away and it's a force main. Obviously, the cost to service 8 lots is financially unfeasible to do that. So it's our desire to press forward within county ordinance and regulation. And we do respectfully request denial for the city sewer request. And as an additional condition to make sure it's noted out there, we are willing to grant the easement back to the city of Mount Juliet should sewer ever come down. I think it's Wright Branch is the name of the creek that crosses east-west by our property.
Okay. Any other citizens wish to make comment? We'll close citizen comments. Any comments from planning commission? I'll start. This is a first for me to have a request for denial. I don't think I've seen that before, but it's recommendation, a negative recommendation. Sorry, we're not voting. Correct. Thank you. Any comments? There, well, yes.
I get Shane, where is the closest? How far are we talking to sewer? So the request is to tie into.
They're going to provide on-site sewer for these lots, and they meet the current zoning requirements of 40,000 square feet, right, for the lots to provide their own sewer on site.
Just amended where it requires certain size lots. The applicant has to connect to city sewer unless they're denied access to it. So this is in response to, you have to be on sewer, but it's not feasible to them. So we have to deny it in order for them to have on-site.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Now it's making sense.
So subdivision, that's one thing, but for 7 lots.
You're requesting to tie. This is going to be an expensive.
Yeah, exactly.
Sewer line. And yeah, there'll be multi-million-dollar houses because that sewer line is going to be very expensive. Okay, now I get it. I got it. Okay, gotcha.
Good. That doesn't even include easements that they would have to get to the sewer as well.
Okay, got it. Yeah, I'm good.
Any other comments? Last chance.
Good.
Looking for a recommendation. Got a second?
Second.
All in favor of a negative recommendation, raise your hands. Signify by saying aye. All opposed? Abstain? Passes as a negative recommendation. I'd like to welcome our chair back to the meeting.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
It was good.
That was a weird one.
All right. For the record, Chairman Winchester's returned to the meeting. With that being said, next item up on our agenda falls underneath item 7.1, which is site plans. Item 7.1 reads as review the site plan for Express Oil located at 11090 Lebanon Road. Ms. Hamilton.
Should be fresh on your brains, except for Luke, since he wasn't here, but this is a resubmittal from a project you guys saw last month that deferred. It's a 5,400 plus square feet of oil change tire center for Express Oil. located on 1.2 acres. They're next to Fast Pace Health on Lebanon Road. Comments from last month was get rid of the blue roof and trim, which they have addressed, and include more parking spaces. Previously was 22. They have provided 27 in the submittal. Staff recommends approval of the site plan for this project, subject to our conditions.
Thank you. Shane, anything from Public Works?
The only comment I added to this staff report is sidewalk will be required on Lebanon Road. That shall be 6 feet wide, but none of our comments changed.
The, is this the project, or this will flow through the project that you mentioned at the beginning of the meeting about the expansion of the sidewalks, through that corridor right there? Is this side of the road?
That is correct.
Okay.
Yes. But yeah, developers, depends on when that sidewalk is constructed, but that is part of the requirements currently, because there's no sidewalk
Right.
right now.
So the portion that we would be building from the city's standpoint would just terminate at this point and then pick back up at the corners of
That
this
is the
property?
intention, yes, sir.
Okay. I just want to make sure. I was like, if we build it, then to me, we should get that reimbursement back.
That is correct.
Okay. Oh. I got just a few questions. Obviously, I was not here on that. Sounds like it was exciting. Yes, it does.
I was
Sounds like
watching from the beach.
a couple of things came to mind right here. And I just can't tell on this particular submittal right here exactly which property. I guess this is the property immediately to the west of the new doctor's office. Is that correct?
Just west of that Fast Pace Health.
Okay. Are we, just looking at the drive lanes or east-west drive lanes right there, we show connectivity, to the south side of this lot. Whereas we also have connectivity through the joint access easement and the cut to Lebanon Road with the medical facility, there next door to it. Is it not our desire to continue potential cross access to the property to the immediate west, or because we've got it on the southwest portion of it, but I guess the northwest portion right there across their parking lot. Or is that something that we want or something that we don't want right there? I think right now it's currently a wooded house, if I'm not
I believe
mistaken.
the intention was to have the cross access going west at the south side of the property.
Keep it off of closer to Lebanon Road or keep it away
Correct.
from Lebanon Road.
I believe that would be the intention. Mr. Director, you know,
Okay,
Andy,
so kind of a private drive of sorts across the
That is
south
correct.
portion of these properties. My other one here, and I guess we do have representation for, and do we, be more directed toward, do we have representation for this project here today? Ah, great. Name and address for the record.
With Brett, 35242.
Wonderful, thank you. Couple quick questions is, assuming when you get your tire deliveries and whatnot for the tire shop at the south portion of your property right there, are all your radiuses acceptable to get you a 53-foot trailer back in there? Get them in, get them out?
We don't typically have 50-foot trailers. We don't usually have anything larger than a dumpster truck.
Okay,
So a lot of times it's a AutoZone small truck, nothing really big. We get multiple
kind of a box
deliveries a
truck
day.
of
Yes,
sorts.
nothing bigger than a box truck or a dumpster.
Okay,
And we always run the truck radius on everything that we do. So we always want to make sure we have more than 30 degrees
okay,
for everybody to make a complete turn and circulate in or out.
okay. Now, are you the engineer or are you with Express Loop?
I'm a project manager with Express Oil.
Okay, good. So you're familiar with Express Loop then? Fantastic. That was going to lead me to another question. You're for the used tires, you guys are just storing those inside and get them picked up on a regular
We do. We have a
basis?
regular schedule to the dumpster, provide it's closed in the enclosure. And
Okay.
so they can access, same as the drive truck,
load them, and they take them. So that's always scheduled
Perfect.
and they're recycled.
That's going to lead me to my next one, kind of right there. I guess growing up here, we used to have one tire store, the Tire Barn. Got taken out in a tornado just adjacent to Rice's Ham store down there years and years ago. Now we've had that expansion of the tire sales directly adjacent to, not O'Reilly, Advanced Auto, right there with the expansion in addition to that building. Yeah, Big O Tires. So we got the Big O Tires right there. So we got two tire shops up there on the north side. I guess, and of course, remodels and stuff like that, we don't see them directly here at planning, but it allows us an opportunity to look at it here. Personally bought my last 3 or 4 sets of tires at tire discounters over in Providence, or Discount Tire. You get tire discounters and Discount Tire.
Yeah, I think
There's actually Discount Tire. People at the other one. Anyway, so they are consistently full. If you offer a good product, especially these days with the cost of tires and new tires for your car, I seem to go through them exponentially fast for some reason. But if you price right, good service, and good service over right pricing, a lot of times wins, it seems these days when it comes to that as well. But a combination of both can equal good success. With that being said, if it is successful, which I hope it is for you guys, I'm just looking at where you're going to put all those cars.
Well, and that is something that Commissioner Hefner brought up last time. 74% of our business is oil change. We
Okay.
do those in 12 minutes. That's
Okay.
our national average.
Nice.
So we treat an oil change just like a drive-through. We want you to keep moving.
Yeah.
So the other 26% is going to be the mechanic shop. And we don't do a lot of volume there. We really just don't. It's not our bread and butter. That's not what we're striving for, but it is an opportunity.
Right.
Because folks do have things they need, but we don't do any major motor repair. We're not keeping cars overnight. If we can't repair it, we actually ask you to take it home. We're not a parking lot. We're not storing, we're not in the business of storing cars,
Right.
if you will.
Right.
So hopefully we are busy.
Yeah.
Like you said, but typically parking isn't an issue. We always try to strive to accommodate more, even just in case it is. Because we do have the anomalies that are incredibly busy where we didn't foresee that was coming. And we are thankful we overplanned at that point.
Yeah. And crazy enough, exactly what you said is what concerns me. From the standpoint that, as I mentioned, where I bought my last set of tires, those other people, we're going to call them. But they don't, same philosophy. They don't overnight. They don't do anything else over there. Matter of fact, when it's quitting time for them, you better go get your keys.
Yeah.
Kind of a thing. But every time, unfortunately had to buy 4 sets of tires within the last year and a half, 2 years. Seems like every vehicle in my car all of a sudden decided to need them. And my small family needed them all at once. And every time I went over there, because like I said, good pricing, good service creates opportunity in that world, that each time my cars were having to double park in their parking lot to even get in. And so if you are successful, that's still remains my magic question, which I hope you are and believe you can be. Your building looks very, very nice. So I'm not sure what all the concerns were. We're not going to worry about that. But what we see here today looks very nice from the road. Thank you for that. But I can't get rid of that concern of where are you going to put them? Because if you do, I mean, I hear you on the mechanic portion of it. I'm thinking of you on the tire portion of it, because just my past life, I was a banker. I know that there's more in tires out there from a business model because you can turn and burn on those versus getting in and turning wrenches and mechanicking. And both my granddaddies were mechanics as well. And so just my overall concern, because you've got all your parking next to your dumpster will be employee parking is what I'm assuming right there. Then you've got a queue for, looks like 5 parking places between the oil change and between the tire shop. So it looks like it's a grand opportunity that you're going to having to be queuing these cars, backing customer cars out in your drive lane left and right to be able to get them back there to your tire shop, which I hope is successful. So that's just,
I do work in the.
I don't know
planning
that we
part.
addressed that really,
So
looking
I
at your
try to
plan.
plan for 3 cars to stack and 1 in the garage as well. So if you count that car in the garage, that's technically 4 that we could stack.
Okay. And these are drive-through garages then?
They are.
They-
We have
even they-
open pits below.
Well, the
Um,
back, I'm talking about your
No,
tire
that's
facility.
close.
That's a close. So if you were double stacking cars right there, you gotta,
wouldn't-
all right, please.
First, just a couple quick comments. I appreciate everything you've done. I apologize too, say this publicly I was just really in an ill mood last
Okay, we
month. So just caught me on a really bad night. So I do apologize. I do want to mention that to you. I was rude, but I want to say that I do appreciate your changing the colors up on the building. So I do like what you've come back with.
you.
And I do appreciate, getting another 5 more spaces. So your attempts there, I do appreciate that. Just how many employees are you anticipating?
We typically have 5 to 6, so that will be 5 to 6 parking spaces that we do use.
Because I see 5 lanes for your tire changing.
We do not have we'll have operators. We have the manager also that will run. So typically in that, there's 4 people just in the oil change bay.
So oil change is 4 people.
Mhm.
And then you have
Mechanic over in the other, so we have 5 to 6, depends.
at both
No,
businesses?
no. For both buildings. We just separate the oil change facility from the mechanic so that we can leave it as a drive-through.
Okay.
So there will be a staff only in the oil change.
Okay.
If they have downtime, they'll walk over to the mechanic and work over there.
Okay.
So we don't fully staff both buildings, I guess, is what I'm trying to get at.
Okay. So a total of 5,
5 to 6,
5 to 6.
depends on volume.
Okay. I was totally under a different impression that there would be
Nope.
5 per
Mm.
business.
Nope.
Or per building.
Nope.
Okay.
Some of our busiest stores, we only have 8 employees.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
I've got one quick question for staff. If the use should change on this, is there anything that we could add that sends it back to the planning commission in the future of the site plan approval? Yep. Perfect. Commissioner Rass, please.
I don't know that they're necessarily, well, one's a question and one's just a comment. While I appreciate complying with code, not sure why a bike rack would be there other than maybe a potential employee coming to work.
They're
That's-
just meeting our code.
I-
They're just
I-
playing the game.
I understand.
We're meeting
What we need to do. The other one I've got a concern about is the handicap parking. The oil change, there won't be any handicapped customers there. But the customers that are handicapped that are getting their tires changed are going to have to, I guess, park their cars up there and navigate back. Is that the plan here? I see a path for it.
There is not a lobby in the back garage. So they would park in the front oil change bay and we would leave them parked there. We
Staff would come up, grab it and take it in.
Absolutely. We have an attendant that even works outside as the cars come in. We don't allow the front area of the garage to be unattended ever. So we will always have an attendant even outside. Even if it's raining, they'll be at the bay to help direct folks, help people in, make sure they don't have to walk as far.
So is all your business conducted in the oil change lobby? If someone comes in and said, I need a set of
Our
4,
waiting area, everything is in the lobby.
so they
sir.
won't be traveling back to that building for any
No,
reason.
The back building is for clients, guests, anyone.
little.
And for valid reasons. That's where our
Okay, that's
lips
a little
are.
bit
That's
more
where, you know, most of our mechanic things are, that we don't want clients parking back there, you know, safety issues.
People like me go back there. People like me.
Understood. I do understand that. But the goal is, it's not that you can't, it's just that we try to keep them in the front lobby.
Appreciate that. And I guess Luke's question, and I just want to confirm that again. The employee parking is in that far back lot, correct?
Yes, sir.
Somebody might need a carpool if you're successful. Okay, I'm done.
Commissioner Searcy.
Your oil change customers, do they ever get out of the car?
No, sir. And we even give the children popsicles when they have to roll the windows down and they're hot. So,
They will not be using the parking spot, right?
no, sir, they're always going to stay parked.
Thank you.
Good question.
Y'all tearing this lady up over here.
I just want a popsicle. That's all.
I can handle that.
Yeah.
I can find one of those.
Yeah. Yep. Perfect. Further questions, comments, please.
This plan looks a lot better than last month.
Thank you.
A lot better. You
Trust me, if I could do this everywhere and I didn't have to fight marketing, it would look this way.
I was a little perplexed, and I know we said we wouldn't bring the color thing up, but I'm going to bring it up just for fun. I was in Hendersonville a couple weeks ago, and I passed by your place there. No blue roof, no blue spouts. So I had a bug in my head, and I thought, well, let's see what's going on. So I looked in Franklin, in Murfreesboro, and in Brentwood, and I saw no blue roofs and no blue spouts. So I'm glad that we changed the colors, because that was going to be my hill to die on tonight.
I have a really good explanation for that. There were 13 stores here in Tennessee that were built by a franchisee, and he got to pick his finishes. We didn't. So we mentored him through the process, but then we turned around and bought him out. So they are ours now, but we did not actually build those.
I think.
But he did a wonderful job.
Yeah.
And I mimicked every single thing that we did in Hendersonville in all 13 stores. Actually, I have spent so much time on it. I have the samples if you guys want to see them in the car.
Literally last minute, I even got samples of the blue, and then the next thing I know, we've got these plans, which was very appreciated to receive. So I do appreciate you guys.
You're
working with
welcome.
us on that.
Yeah.
This is rare that I'm gonna ask this, Miss Hamlin. I usually don't take away green or curb or anything else, and not known to do that. But if it becomes the will of the body and this is passed tonight, would it be, I don't have a ability to scale this right there, but it looks like that curb could be reduced at the back corner and possibly add one more parking place at the very back. Is that possible for, I guess, something to work with that staff should the body opinion to approve this project? If we see that it meets our
I was looking
standards.
at their ISR just to make sure that that wouldn't throw them over, and I don't think it will. Max is 80 and they're at 74%. So we have to just keep that in mind. You got to have some green space, right, for water. And I think that's why you don't have that additional parking there. Do you know?
We have increased the impervious so much that we're that tight. We're maxing it out on impervious surface.
So we'd have to grant a variance for that.
They would
were a
actually have to
request.
do a little something different with, they could do pervious pavers there. They could just do pervious pavers there.
I don't want to put that, you've presented us with a very nice building. I don't want to put it that, I'm also familiar with the price of impervious pavers.
It's one spot.
Well,
We want to do business here.
but
with you
still, I
guys,
mean,
and,
it's not something that I'm going to stand on the hill about. I'm just looking for more opportunity for you. I think your business can do well right there. And so I don't want to take up one of the customer parking places for an employee. And so, yeah, rarely would you see me saying, oh yeah, add another one, move curb, reduce green space. Just not something I would normally say up here. But should the opportunity create itself, and it's easier the way it is right now.
we are open to working with comments of what you guys are looking for. I mean, I've worked really closely with Director Hamblin and really tried to check every box she wanted.
Get an opinion
Would you
on
feel comfortable if she just worked that out with Shane
Yeah.
after? And
Yeah,
if
that's
it's
exactly
through
what
the
I'm saying.
process,
If it
or
works,
just let it
works. If
go?
If it doesn't, it doesn't.
Those papers are, I mean, and
I
it
know.
would look odd to have one.
We would go ahead and try to pave it. If we have to. We would want it to look good.
Wanted to kick in a variance for open space either. So, yeah, it'd be subject to figuring out if you scale it, look at it, see if the effect. Okay.
So do you just
Perfect.
want to make that a condition, work with Shane on possible addition when during the construction document review process? One additional space. Okay. Got that.
We may could cut out one of those center islands too and get one there.
Mhm.
I can look at that.
You're just really close on that ISR.
Yeah.
Yeah. We just
Yeah.
got to look at the percentages because we are so close.
I don't want to hurt you from that standpoint either.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, and I also would like to add, we have no issues building the road that will eventually connect to Mount Juliet. I've actually already requested the civil plans from Fast Pace for that and the sidewalk and the detention tie-in. So that is something that we are absolutely prepared to do as well.
Awesome.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Further questions, comments? Some will call for citizen comments. Anyone wishing to make comments, welcome, encouraged to do so. Microphone, name and address for the record. Seeing no citizen comments this time, looking for a motion regards this item on the agenda. I'll make a motion for approval, subject to staff comments. Also, that the applicant can work with staff with the potential to add an additional parking place. Should it not kick in any variances or anything else out there, if it becomes of the opinion of staff, that it can be, out there, that would like to see them have the opportunity to add additional space at the back. Motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye and raising your hand. Aye. Against, abstentions? So approved. Welcome to town. With that being said, I'm looking for a motion to adjourn. Motion, second. All those in favor signify by saying aye and raise your hand. Aye. Against, abstentions? So adjourned.